Seasonal later, Viper. Okay, okay, talk later. I'll send Rick. You know he'll have something. Not that Rick. You know what Rick I'm talking about. Here we go. Mm. Mhm. He is right next to it. Right on that road. Did he? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh yeah, Danny hangs out a lot in the great show.
Yeah, so, oh my goodness.
No, she's.
We get her
Yeah,
to behave.
yeah, I just, and they said they were gonna renew the 120 days.
Well, it's a new 120 days because it's a new LOI.
Yeah,
Run for this
yeah.
job.
So that's why I asked the question. I'm like, look, you said this is what we're doing. If we do this, though, does that give you the ability to say no? That's what I wanted to make sure we're not doing.
That's it.
And it sounded like
I flipped the coin several times and you won. There you go. No worries.
You're going to the left.
Right, I can't see that.
I need to be focused.
We'll be watching it. We're watching it.
I got saw, cut that out, and the way it went. I don't think I'll do that.
Good morning and welcome to the Barron County Board of Commissioners meeting for March 24th, 2026. If you would please stand for our invocation and our pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this morning. We thank you for the opportunity to meet, to discuss, to solve the problems of our county. We ask for your continued blessings upon this board, all of our constituents in this land we call Barron County. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For purposes of attendance, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Bassett. Here. Carlton. Here. Campbell is absent. Getty. Here. Smelker. Here. Tunison.
Here.
Hatfield.
Here.
And Jackson.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Reports from state and county officials. Are there any state or county officials with us this morning who would like to give an update to the board?
They said they were ready. They're reading it.
Okay. Hearing none, limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes for any item listed on our agenda.
Report back to you guys.
Good morning, Gary White. The Open Meetings Act is not a difficult read. The Attorney General puts out a handbook for all boards to be aware of. When you go down to your consent items, let me see if I can find this real quick. I had it on here. But it says you're going to approve March 10th Board of Commissioners meeting minutes, approve March 17th. The Open Meetings Act's pretty blatant. It says you are to approve the minutes of your board at your next meeting. And your special meeting was your next meeting. So it's pretty obvious March 10th should have been approved on the 17th. Your 17th should be approved today. Your minutes have been a problem in the past when you're trying to approve minutes from the cow at your commissioners meeting. You straighten that out. Once again, it's not a difficult read, but once again, is it a violation? If you're not looking at what you're regulated by, are you doing your job? I have talked before about justice, the justice system. The justice system consists of how much justice can you afford. Later on in your agenda, you look at appeals from Mr. Snowden. I didn't know the gentleman. I met him, the last time he was here. But I'm just, sitting there saying, well, I've addressed this before. Your government has unlimited funds to go against anybody they want. We've seen that happen at all levels of the justice system. Mr. Carlton opened up a wild, live question when he asked his one question about that. And now it becomes transparency. I think it's a transparency issue for the county and county government. Are they excessive fees? And based on the statements that were made, should you be, not denying the appeal, but approving the appeal? I'm wondering also, your chairman talked about you're going to do some work. How much work have you as commissioners done on the appeal? Or are we going to hear from the county administrator of why he wants it denied? I'm really wondering if, 4 weeks later, have you done your job that seemed like was going to be what you were going to do on this? I don't have enough time, but we're going to talk about the appointments and your state statutory positions. When a member did not know Jason Watson, that became real interesting to many people. Thank you.
Additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda, approval of the written agenda. At this time, any member of the Board of Commissioners may ask for an item to be removed from the consent agenda and placed under items for consideration. Hearing no such request, does any commissioner wish to change the agenda additionally? Hearing no such request, the agenda is approved as written. Various correspondence. Does any commissioner have correspondence they'd like to share with the board? Thank you. Consent agenda. Commissioner Bassett.
Yes, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as follows. Approval of March 10th, 2026 Board of Commissioners meeting minutes and approval of the March 17th, 2026 special Board of Commissioners meeting minutes.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Bassett, support by Smelker for all items listed on the consent agenda. Discussion is not allowed and a roll call vote is required. All those in favor vote aye, opposed vote nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Bassett?
Aye.
Carlton? Campbell? Absent. Getty?
Aye.
Smoker?
Aye.
Tunison?
Aye.
Hatfield?
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. Presentations this morning, we have none. Public hearings, we have none. Items for consideration. The chair would entertain a motion for approval of claims in the amount of $93,793.03.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Tunison, support by Getty for approval of claims in the amount of $93,793.03. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Carlton? Campbell's absent. Getty?
Aye.
Smoker?
Aye.
Tunison?
Aye.
Bassett?
Aye.
Hatfield?
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Next up, Mr. Patton. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. He's the only Mr. Parker. That's my dad.
I hope Bruce Campbell's not watching today, because I'm not sure about his look that's going on.
Exactly. It's gone downhill. I wanted to be able to see it then.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's a lot to see here, Bob. So before you have a resolution request of authorization for Chairman Jackson to sign and authorize us to proceed, sign the project agreement and authorize us to proceed with the project Recreation Passport Grant from Michigan DNR. We were here a year ago, I think just a little bit over a year ago, maybe, in 2025 to request the ability to apply for a Recreation Passport Grant for improvements at Charlton Park Boat Ramp. We made the deadline. It was close, but we made it. And subsequently, we were successful in that grant program. We actually scored, we were the second highest score, and I think there were 144 applicants, so we feel pretty good about that. Obviously, it took a lot of work and time to put the grant together, but ultimately, it turns out we were successful, and we're just requesting that you sign the project agreement and allow us to move forward.
Okay.
So I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Mr. Getty?
I'm just excited to see the state recognize that that's an important project and getting lake access there. And it's kind of a nightmare to drive through there, especially if you have a boat on a trailer with kids and families running around. So this really addresses those concerns, and I think it'll be a really nice addition.
Okay. Commissioner Smelker?
One part about it that I like is a boat wash station. I think that's a necessity in these public ramps. But on handling the money, will this be handled through Charlton Park? Will there be a special account for this grant?
I don't, Eric and I met last week, 2 weeks ago, discussed that piece. There probably will be a special fund created. That's typically how we do the grants. I don't know that the number has been created yet in terms of that, although we'll start incurring costs fairly soon. We have a pre-application meeting on Thursday with Eagle to get the permitting moving. That's going to take a little bit of time. I don't know our new representative with Eagle, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We're hoping it's pretty straightforward with them. And then the next will be the survey work. The topographical survey stuff will all have to be done to create the staking. Our goal is to start construction in 2027. There'll probably be some things we can do here at the end of the year, because we are doing some stuff in-house, but ultimately the bulk of the expenditure will not be until 2027. So there might be one caveat with that. And so Kalamazoo County is putting in basically the same type dock. They're constructed over on the east side of the state. We're going to try to potentially work with them if the timing works out to see if we can maybe get one a little cheaper if we buy two. So we'll see. I can't make any promises on that, but yeah, I hope I've built in enough, John, that we can take care of all the financing. The discussion Eric and I had is we have to pay for everything up front. It's a reimbursement program. I think we can do that. We'll see. But ultimately, there will be a special fund created just for the project. So, but hopefully that answers that question.
Now, I know you can't give me exact on this, but an educated guess. You start in 27, you think it might be done in 27?
Oh, yeah, we anticipate being done. My goal is to be done before June 1st. But I don't control the weather. I don't control the contracting. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We've got a couple of local guys we'd like to work with, but ultimately I have to do low bid state contract unless I can make a justification on why. We'll see how fuel prices are going to affect everything too. That might make it better for some of our local guys if they're not already swamped. I mean, all the contractors I'm talking to are pretty busy, so.
Now, when I was reading through that, I see the end date is March of 28.
Yep.
You don't see a problem with that?
Oh, no, not at all. No. Nope.
I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, be aware that having done projects on lakes before, fish spawning in the spring, the DNR likes to step on your toes and limit when you can and can't do it.
Oh, yeah.
So, it gets entertaining with those guys. But congratulations.
Thank you.
On the grant. That'll be a huge improvement to the park. We appreciate your effort and our administration's effort to make that happen. Additional questions or comments?
I got one more.
Hey, you said you were done.
No. Memory's not good. I see in there that we have to keep this going for at least 20 years.
Yes, sir.
Any thought in if we don't get the millage for Charlton Park? How to keep this going?
Turn it back over to the road commission? I don't know. I mean,
From what I've seen, do you see a lot of maintenance?
No, not in this particular piece. No.
That's when I looked it over, I didn't see
The existing boat ramp, John, was put in 1980, and nothing's been done to that. We need to do a little work on it. But those things, they pretty much last forever. The dock itself is all aluminum and fiberglass, or composite, I shouldn't say fiberglass. So I don't see that being an issue at all.
Pretty much.
We're trying, honestly, John, this started, well, you remember, I think you were on the board at the time when I came in and started talking about roofing material. There's not much that we do that we're not trying to do long-term.
Yep.
I mean, honestly. Now, that doesn't work necessarily with some of our historic structures. They're still wood. They're going to be wood from now until eternity. And so that's a little different scenario with the historic buildings. But, outside of that, everything that this current Parks Commission does and everything that I've been trying to do is secure long-term. So that we're not facing a maintenance issue in 5 years or 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I was looking through there, and I seen minimal maintenance.
Yep.
But I wanted to ask you to see if I missed something.
No, sir.
Thank you.
No.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
The boat wash station, I see there's staffed and there's water and all that. So can you explain to me how this one will work?
So it's a dry station. We call it a dry station. There are certain tools and spray applications that you can provide as a part of the station. It's not a full-on, I don't want everybody to think it's a power wash station. It's not, right? That creates a whole separate issue with water collection, and we're just not set up for that. It's a practice that's been proven in other remote locations that are similar to ours that don't have running water or the reserve system for utilizing or getting rid of the wastewater that comes off the boats, and they don't necessarily want it all running right back into the water. So this is what they call a dry system. We provide the tools and, as I indicated, some bottle spray materials that you can wipe the boat down with, but it's mainly utilizing a scrub brush, there's 3 other tools with that, and honestly, I don't remember what they are off the top of my head. And hopefully people use it. You know, it's not something we're going to force on people, but obviously, you can look around the state at the invasive species situation, and I know the conservation districts up here all the time talking to you guys about the different invasives, and certainly the waterways are dealing with it too. So if they can wash it off and keep it in the thornapple, great. And then that maybe it doesn't end up at Long Lake or one of the others. But I'm going to call it a primitive system for a primitive location. Yeah.
It's not staffed.
It is not staffed, no.
It wouldn't hurt if they do it before they launched either, would it?
Oh, it wouldn't hurt, no.
Bringing species from other...
No. We always recommend you should clean it before and after.
Yep, very good.
But again, John, there's a lot of education that has to go into that. And I just don't know. I don't know that people just don't believe it. I don't know. But it is a reality, and we're all dealing with it. So, yeah.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? The chair will entertain a motion for adoption of Resolution 26-13, authorizing Chair Jackson or designee to sign and authorize the BCPRC authority to complete, and authorize Dan Patton, Parks Director, as Berry County designee for projects RP 25-0019, a Michigan DNR Recreation Passport Grant for improvements at historic Charlton Park.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Getty, support by Hatfield. Is everybody clear on the motion? Any additional questions or comments? Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Campbell's absent. Getty?
Yes.
Ms. Smelker?
Yeah.
Tunison?
Aye.
Bassett?
Aye.
Carlton?
Aye.
Hatfield?
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
Chances that get signed today?
My pen's a little low on ink, but I'll see what I can do. All
right, thank you.
We'll make it work some way, somehow.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
I've got to scoot, but thank you very much.
All right.
Patrick can tell you why I'm leaving. He's never gone home.
Yeah, Patrick Jansen.
Why is he
There's a fire out there near his place, so that's why he's leaving.
Okay.
So, good morning, everybody. I have a grant before you. This is a familiar one. This is the Emergency Management Performance Grant. We've had this for quite a few years. Unfortunately, we've seen a downward trend in the actual allocations for this, but our allocation amount is 8.498% of my compensation, so it's $11,385 is what the award amount is for Berry County with this grant. And typically, this is presented to you guys in September, October timeframe, but with federal shutdowns and everything that's been going on with grants and programs, we're now seeing it here in March. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like again for the next one. And just as a refresher for some of you, this is a reimbursement grant, so this is an FY25. So this is looking at October 1st of 2024 through September 30th of 2025. And so that we're still waiting on reimbursement on some of this.
Always amazing how we do these every year, and we're always doing them in arrears, that we are behind a year-ish on some of this stuff. But questions from commissioners? This is a pretty normal thing. We do this every year, so you've seen it come across before. If there are no questions, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the submission of an acceptance of the fiscal year 2025 EMP grant and authorize chief elected official to sign all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Bassett for approved submission of the acceptance of the fiscal year 2025 EMP grant and authorize chief elected official to sign all necessary documents. Any additional discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Getty.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Junison.
Aye.
Bassett.
Aye.
Carlton.
Aye.
Campbell's absent. Hatfield.
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have to scoot.
Hopefully the fire's not too bad. So.
No, just more meetings.
More meetings.
Have a good day.
Kevin, Herb.
Morning, sir. Fellow board members. Before Kevin gets started, I just want to let you know, these vehicles were budgeted for this year. So he's coming back for approval because they're over $7,500. So I'll let Kevin take it from there. Thanks. Good morning. Seeking approval for 3 new police package patrol vehicles for our office. The new vehicles are $55,796 per vehicle, and there's a cost for equipment. The equipment cost is worst case scenario, and that's $20,073. Some equipment transfers from patrol car to patrol car, but just in case it doesn't, then we budget for the worst case scenario.
I'm assuming all this new technology with the dash cams and all that
Yes, sir.
nicely into the new stuff?
Yes, sir.
They're transferable, no issues?
That portion is the good part. The dividers and things of that nature, that's the questionable pieces, but the cameras, they'll transfer easily.
Questions from commissioners?
I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question. I think you're talking about it right now. Are there things that are in the existing vehicles that you can move into the new vehicles?
Correct.
Right? Is that
Yes,
what you're
yes,
talking
ma'am.
about?
Yes, ma'am.
If you-
Yes, that $20,000 figure is a worst case scenario in case none of the equipment transfers. But for the most part, usually the majority of it does.
Additional questions? Commissioner Tennyson.
Kevin, at what point do you guys replace these vehicles? How many miles?
I'm glad you asked that because that's where I did my research. We have the 3 cars that we're replacing are all over 160,000 miles. You would replace your vehicle with that many, but you got to take into consideration these are responding miles. These aren't nice miles, and I'm actually very proud of our officers. They take good care of their vehicles. So the 2 of them are 2016s, the others are 2017. Now, these won't go for sale. They'll just get reassigned. They'll go either to the posse or they'll go to the Marine Patrol. So we'll continue to use them in our fleet.
At what point do you rotate them out, though?
When they finally get to a place where they're unsafe, like the last one that we sold, the frame had started to rot through. Now, some of these vehicles that go to the Marine Patrol will actually get funding back from the state, so that actually helps in the long run pay for that vehicle. So it all helps out.
You got it.
Okay.
So I make sure you had it. If we lease them back out to the state, we make money on those afterwards. So we've already paid for them up front. When we take the Marine Division, we lease those back out to the state for doing the work.
Can we expand the Marine Division and lease them all back to the state?
Yes, sir.
Give the total.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to give you the total of $227,609.43.
So the cost of the vehicles is $167,388, and then the upgrades, technology, everything else that goes with it, lights?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let me answer, Marsh. Sometimes they like to change a little tweak in a model, which then makes all your old equipment not transfer. So it's very frustrating. That it's like that. It costs, it's still a good divider, but it doesn't fit the new car.
Okay. Commissioner Smelker?
Well, the ones you keep, you'll keep the equipment in, kind of though, won't you? Won't the Marine Division need?
Yes, they'll use like the radio per se, Mr. Smoker, but we have new radios that we've already allotted for that'll go into the new vehicles.
ADCs?
Those we will have to purchase. That's part of the $20,000 total. We're starting to purchase those on our own, Mr. Smoker.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Additional questions? Yes.
Are all the vehicles now equipped with dash cams and?
Just the ones that are on patrol and court security officer, they're the ones that have in our transport vans, yes. But we have some vehicles that are assigned, like if they're the posse or the Marine patrols, those don't have the in-car cameras.
But all our patrol vehicles
Yes, ma'am.
currently have
Yes,
dash
ma'am.
cams. And do our officers have the body cams or all that? Is that
Body
what's set up
cams
yet?
aren't in the service yet, ma'am.
Okay.
When will they be?
As soon as they get the new, they had to change out the equipment from the one model to the other, and as soon as we have those, they'll be put into service.
Okay.
And it should be next month.
Commissioner Smelker?
Kind of getting off the vehicle thing here. Have we got a policy on the body cams?
Yes, that has been sent to MMRMA and the attorneys, and we're waiting for a response from them.
Thank you.
But I appreciate that question because I need to follow up on that. Thank you.
I had just one more question.
Yes.
I had heard at one time, we had vehicles that weren't in service, a couple to 2 or 3 that are, I don't know, for lack of a better term, spares in case we have issues with patrol vehicles.
Correct, yes.
So we have new vehicles that are not in service, that are just
We have one new
waiting in
vehicle
reserve?
right at the moment that's being built. And as soon as it's done being built, then it'll be put into service. And then we'll transition those spare cars that you speak of. They'll either get assigned to posse or Marine patrol. But the only time the new cars sit is while they're waiting for equipment to come in so they can be put together.
Okay. Additional questions? Okay, and these are, typically, we've got these 3 purchased 1 year and then 2
And
the
then 2 the
following
next.
year.
Yes,
And that's
sir.
what we budget for, to
Yes,
continue
sir.
to rotate these through the system?
Yes,
All right.
that's correct, sir.
That's what I thought. And these are coming out of the Vehicle Replacement Fund, and they were budgeted in the 2026 budget, so. Chair would entertain a motion for approval of the purchase of 3 Tahoe 4-wheel drive police package vehicles from Berger Chevrolet for a total cost of $167,388.
What was the 227?
227? Okay, so that was written in there.
All right.
So now I have a total here of 242,004.
That was the budgeted amount.
Okay.
The 227,609.43 was the amount after with the equipment. I'll take the blame. We had a little miscommunication between Kevin and myself on updating the agenda request form, so that's why you had that purchase price of the cars was the only thing on there.
Okay. 227,609.43.
Yep.
Is the number. The chair would entertain a motion for the purchase of 3 Tahoe 4-wheel drive police package vehicles from Berger Chevrolet for a total of $227,609.43.
So moved.
Motion by Tunison, support by Galton. For approval to purchase 3 Tahoe 4-wheel drive police package vehicles from Berger Chevrolet for a total of $227,609.43. Additional discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Smelter?
Aye.
Tennyson.
Aye.
Bassett.
Aye.
Carlton.
Aye.
Campbell absent. Bassett.
Getty?
Getty, thank you. Aye. Chatfield.
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you very
Kevin.
much.
Eric.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commission. In your packet is the latest opioid settlement case. This is not a large one, as you see. That's not the official amount. That's my best guesstimate based on the percentage and the settlement number. I haven't seen the official amount from the state yet, but we need to submit I'm requesting authorization to sign the opioid settlement on behalf of the county.
Is this an additional opioid settlement?
Yeah, I think we're coming down near the end of the company's, there's been so many different pieces moving, and as some companies have gone together and settled, others have been one-offs. I know Michael did a ton in 23 and 24, so this is just the next one in line, so another $13,000 that will be added to.
Another company?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Questions from commissioners? Fairly simple. Chair would entertain a motion to authorize the county administrator to sign the 6 remnant defendant opioid settlement on behalf of Berry County.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Getty, support by Bassett, to authorize the county administrator to sign the 6 remnant defendant opioid settlements on behalf of Berry County. Discussion. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Bassett.
Aye.
Carlton.
Aye.
Campbell's absent. Getty.
Aye.
Smoker.
Aye.
Tennyson.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Next up, Brownfield.
We have 2 seats that came up at the end of last year that are due for reappointment. They both are on the board based on their positions with the City of Hastings and Village of Middleville. So instead of going through the interview process, I talked to the chair about just reappointing them. I reached out to those, the city manager and the village manager, and asked if they still would like those people to appointed to represent their communities, and the answer was yes, if they're still interested. So I am requesting the appointment of Dan King and Doug Powers to 3-year terms.
Yeah, and they've been long-standing members of that committee and very good members of that committee, so. Questions for Eric? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion for approval to reappoint Doug Powers and Dan King to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for 3-year terms that begin on January 1st, 2026, ending on December 31st, 2029.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Tennyson for approval to reappoint Doug Powers and Dan King to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for 3-year terms that begin on January 1st, 2026, ending on December 31st, 2029. Additional discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Carlton.
Aye.
Campbell's absent. Getty.
Aye.
Smoker.
Aye.
Tennyson.
Aye.
Bassett.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved.
This was added late after the packet was already put out, but within the allotted time to have that agenda item put on the agenda. The Stepping Stones Housing Project is a project in Delton that Revitalize Delton and Berry Township and Clark Brothers Construction have been working on for a while. Berry Township submitted an LOI for the project, a letter of interest, intent, for a $1.5 million CDBG grant. You should all be very similar with CDBG. That's what we use for our home renovation programs, but they also do infrastructure, new housing development, those type of things. This project was aimed at infrastructure development for this 33-unit subdivision, which would probably be the first new housing built in Delton in a long time. Berry Township, working with Revitalize Delton, had submitted the LOI, and they were going to work through the project, knowing that they don't have a lot of grant experience. I was talking to Marcia and others and suggest, well, maybe that's something the county can serve. We have a CDBG process. We have a relationship with MSHA. We have a relationship with vendors who would help through this process. This is not dollars that come out of our pocket. There's administration dollars that we would pay our third-party administrator like we do now. Marilyn Smith, who you all know. And knowing the compliance issues with CDBG is not easy. I thought it would be easier for us to do it than for the township, and Barry was ecstatic to say, please. But I'm going to turn it over to Marcia from here.
Yeah, so as Eric said so well, we did apply for this grant, and we were going to do it under the township. But as we got further down the road, and as we got the approval and we reviewed everything we need to do, many compliance issues, and Berry Township really doesn't have that capacity to do that, nor the experience. So we had talked to Eric about, would he help us with the process? And then he was saying, well, this is Berry County anyways, right? And so it would be appropriate to be under Berry County. The experience is here. And, we can work closely with Eric in the process, and it doesn't cost the county anything because all those third-party administration fees will come out of the grant, and they would be paid out of the grant. So this makes a lot of sense. We probably would be bothering Eric a lot to help us with this through Berry Township, and we just thought actually it streamlines it and makes it easier if it's just here at the county. So that's why we'd like to switch it here. And Eric did reach out to MSHA, and they said, yeah, you've already been approved for this, and therefore we do have to do a new letter of intent, but it is already approved, so we will go through their system, and we will have a restart on the 120 days, so that will give us time to get through the process. And so the process will be the exact same. It's just, we wouldn't have to be, Eric can not just help us from the outside, but can actually do it, and he's already been through it before. So.
Has Marilyn been in communication? Is she going to be involved in this?
Not yet.
We have to put an RFP out for that. I mean, unless someone else puts in for them. I haven't seen anybody else put in for Berry County CDBG third-party administrators. We have an RFP out right now for our new grant. So we'll put another one out when we are authorized to move forward with that. What you're being asked today is to approve submitting an LOI and application for this project on behalf of the county and authorizing me to sign.
Questions?
No question, just a comment. I'm for this. I'm going to vote yes on this. But I do believe that opens us up for different communities around that we may be doing this for more, like Woodland, Nashville, anything like that, right?
I did offer in the last cycle, I sent a message out to the villages, to the two I know that were working on things, said, hey, if you have a project and you want to go under the county umbrella to make it easier for an application, we're happy to look at that, but they went, I know Hastings was doing their own. So where it makes sense to collaborate with our local units of government, I'm all for it, especially if it helps the county move things forward.
All right.
Additional questions? Commissioner Tunison?
Just, this is basically common sense that Eric's got connections with the state, with MSHA already and everything else, and for Berry Township to try to take this on would be way over their head. And it just makes sense that we would do this.
This is an infrastructure grant, Marcia?
That is correct. It's just public roads, sewer, and water.
Okay.
Now, also, I've asked Eric, and he said this will not overburden him. And will you reiterate that, please?
I would prefer a different time of year for this to be happening, because right now, where we stand, it's extremely busy in my office. However, once we get these few pieces in place and we get a third-party administrator on, it won't be that, just like the current program isn't that bad.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion for approval to submit a letter of intent and application for a community development block grant for the Stepping Stones housing project and authorize the county administrator to sign all necessary documents.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Bassett, support by Tunison for approval to submit a letter of intent and application for a community development block grant for Stepping Stones Housing Project and authorize the county administrator to sign all necessary documents. Any additional discussion or comments? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Getty. Aye. Smelter.
Aye.
Dennison.
Aye.
Campbell, absent. Bassett.
Aye.
Carlton.
Aye.
Hatfield.
Aye.
And Jackson.
The motion is approved. Thank you. You want a break?
Yeah.
Okay. We are requesting, the board will be at recess for about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, early for you. Okay.
I provided a brief explanation of these concerns. The response I received was that I appeared frustrated and that from the board's perspective, the county had been forthcoming. Respectfully, the record does not support that conclusion. Since that time, I have reviewed the proceedings more closely and supplemented the record through formal written correspondence and notices. Prior to the last hearing, I submitted formal notice addressed to this board through the county administration in connection with my pending appeals. Those notices were not general correspondence. They were formal notices placing the board as the final policymaker on actual notice of statutory noncompliance, record handling deficiencies, and the need for corrective action. Those notices were sent by certified mail and received by the county administration. However, those notices were not provided to the board prior to that hearing. I raise that not as an accusation, but as a matter of process, because it indicates that information submitted to the board for purposes of its decision-making may not have been conveyed to the board before it acted. Obviously, y'all didn't act on that decision that day. But that matters, right? Because where formal notice is directed to the final policymaker, but is not delivered to or considered by that policymaker, the issue is no longer simply the adequacy of the county's response. It becomes whether the board's determination was made without the full record placed before it. What the complete record shows is not simply a disagreement over access to documents, but a pattern of incomplete responses, contradictory determinations, and the absence of required custodial and statutory clarity. For example, the county has simultaneously produced certain materials while certifying that related records do not exist. It has provided documents without identifying the lawful custodian, and it has not issued a clear determination regarding statutory compliance with judicial bonding requirements, despite being given notice and an opportunity to do so. Those are not discretionary issues. They are matters of statutory obligation. I also want to address something that goes directly to the purpose of my request. During a court proceeding in my case that we talked about the last time I was here, the prosecutor stated on the record that she had been instructed by the court not to share any information with me because I am self-represented. That statement has serious implications. It means that access to information necessary to understand and respond to proceedings, was restricted not by law, but by instruction. And when access to information is restricted in that way, the only remaining avenue for transparency is through public records and administrative accountability. That is why these requests exist. Additionally, after the prior hearing, I observed that the board entered into a closed session, and upon returning to public session, indicated that further discussion and possible consultation with attorneys would occur, which was mentioned. I don't raise that as a criticism, but to highlight that the issues presented were recognized as significant enough to warrant further review. I also learned that in May of 2023, this board approved the retention of outside legal counsel in connection with a grievance involving the county's prosecutor. The current board composition remains the same. That fact is relevant only because it demonstrates that concerns involving prosecutorial conduct and system integrity are not new issues. Taken together, this raises an important question, not of intent, but of oversight. Whether the board is being provided with a complete and accurate record when making determinations, and whether statutory obligations tied to that record are being fully met. I want to clarify that these appeals are not an attempt to litigate my criminal case before this board. However, certain actions within that case, including the continuation of prosecution after an affidavit of non-prosecution and attempts to introduce prior unrelated allegations without proper procedural safeguards, further illustrate why clarity, transparency, and adherence to established process are essential. My position today is straightforward. These appeals are not about whether documents were partially produced. They are about whether the county has demonstrated compliance with the statutory framework governing those records. Specifically, whether it can identify custodians, make lawful determinations of record existence, and verify compliance with mandatory legal requirements. Because if those things cannot be shown, then the issue is not process, it's accountability. At this stage, the question before you is no longer whether the county has responded. is whether the county can demonstrate on the record that its response complies with the law. And with that, I'll begin my appeals. So we're going to touch back on 25.176. This is an administrative appeal under NCO 15.240 regarding request 25-176. I'll present this in a structured format so the issues are clear on the record. Although this request was submitted under FOIA, this matter is not limited to FOIA. The records at issue are independently required by Michigan law to exist. This is not a records request issue. This is a statutory compliance issue. FOIA governs only the procedure for requesting records. It does not determine whether records are required to exist, and it does not limit or override independent statutory duties. Where the law requires a record to exist, compliance is not optional. Michigan law requires public officials to take and file oaths of office under MCO 15.1 through 15.5. It also requires that the prosecuting attorney give bond before entering office under MCO 49.35. Excuse me. These are not optional requirements. They are conditions precedent to lawful office. If the law requires a bond before taking office, then one of two things must be true. Either the bond exists or the law was not followed. And if it was not followed, that's not a records issue, that's a compliance failure. These statutes necessarily require the existence of the records, custodial office responsible for them, and the ability to identify and produce those records. Michigan law also requires that these records be maintained and accounted for. Under MCO 46.11 and 46.13, the county clerk has custody of official records. Under MCO 15.182, public officers must maintain adequate documentation. And under MCO 399.811, the county must maintain a record retention system. These statutes require not just internal compliance, but the ability to identify, locate, and produce those records. FOIA itself confirms this. MCL 15.231 subsection 2 provides that FOIA does not diminish rights under other statutes. So FOIA cannot be used to restrict access to records that are required by law to exist. FOIA is a mechanism of access. It is not a shield against statutory compliance. FOIA procedure cannot be used to avoid answering whether the county is in compliance with mandatory law. The county's response does not satisfy MCL 15.235. Specifically, the county issued contradictory determinations, first stating that the request was granted in full, and then issuing a partial denial after receiving a clarification and deficiency notice. Those are legally incompatible positions. Wait for the bell. Gonna go all 10, isn't it? A response cannot be both complete and incomplete at the same time. The county also failed to cite any exemption under MCO 15.243, failed to affirmatively state whether records exist or do not exist, and failed to identify the custodian of the requested records. Because of that, the response does not satisfy any lawful response under MCO 15.235 subsection 2 and constitutes an unlawful denial as a matter of law. The issue here is not simply whether documents were produced. The issue is whether the county has complied with statutory duties that require these records to exist, be maintained, and be accountable for. Instead of producing compliant records, the county provided liability insurance documents and a blanket certificate that does not satisfy statutory bonding requirements. There is no statute in Michigan law that permits substitution of liability insurance for a required bond. Compliance cannot be approximated. That is both a failure to comply with FOIA and a failure to comply with independent statutory duties. The county was given multiple opportunities to correct these deficiencies. It did not issue a lawful response, certify non-existence, identify a custodian, or cite governing statutory authority. Again, at this point, this is no longer an oversight. It's continued non-compliance after notice. Under MCL 15.240, the board now has a non-delegable duty to determine compliance and correct any unlawful denial. There is also a structural issue in how this request was handled. The county administrator serves as both the FOIA coordinator and the administrative authority over the records and departments at issue. It creates a condition where the county is effectively reviewing its own conduct. The record reflects recharacterization of requests, inconsistent positions, and failure to cure after notice. For the record, I'm not asking for argument or explanation at this stage. I'm asking for a clear determination. At this stage, the question is no longer what was produced. The question is whether the county is in compliance with mandatory law. The county is required to take one of two positions on the record. Either the requested records exist, in which case they must be produced or specifically exempted, or the records do not exist, in which case the county must clarify that non-existence following a diligent search of all locations reasonably likely to contain responsive records. That certification must be made in writing by an authorized official with knowledge of the search. That certification must identify the department's custodians and record systems that were searched. There is no lawful middle ground, and there is no third option that satisfies the law. Any response that does not clearly state one of those two positions is, by definition, non-responsive. So, if the records exist, the county must identify the custodian, the office where they are maintained, and the statutory basis for any withholding. If the records do not exist, the county must explain how that complies with MCL 15.1 through 15.5, MCL 49.35, MCL 46.11, and 46.13, and MCL 399.811. Failure to provide a clear position in lawful certification will establish a complete record of statutory noncompliance. The purposes of this appeal is not simply to obtain documents. It is to determine whether the county is in compliance with the law governing public office. The record establishes an unlawful denial under MCO 15.235, failure to comply with statutory bonding requirements, and failure to maintain or account for required records. These are not procedural issues. They are violations of mandatory statutory conditions governing public office. Under MCL 15.240, corrective action is required. For the record, I am requesting that the board makes these findings explicitly. Failure to require a lawful and complete response will constitute ratification of statutory noncompliance by this board and leave judicial intervention as the only remaining remedy. We'll move on to 25-179, 180, 180B. And again, although these requests were submitted under FOIA, this matter is not limited to FOIA. The records at issue are internal governmental communications and operational records that are required by Michigan law to exist. This is not a records request issue. This is a statutory compliance issue. And I apologize because y'all are going to hear this spiel again one more time. FOIA governs only the procedure for requesting records. It does not determine whether records are required to exist, and it does not override independent statutory duties. Where the law requires records of official activity to exist, compliance is not optional. At the request of the chair, I've narrowed the time frame of these requests. On November 2nd, 2025, I served Rule 36 admissions requests in anticipation of litigation. On November 7th, 2025, I received a response from Cole, Stoker, and Toski. And then again, on November 17th, 2025, I received a follow-up response. The communications requested fall within that defined time frame. Excuse me. I'll just bring this up here. Michigan law requires that records of official activity be created, maintained, and preserved. Under MCL 15.182, public officers must make and keep records of their official activities. Under MCL 46.11 and 46.13, the county must maintain and account for its records and custodians. Under MCL 399.811 and 399.812, the county must maintain a record retention system and preserve public records in identifiable systems. These statutes require not just internal record keeping, but the ability to identify, locate, and produce those records. FOIA itself confirms this. MCL 15.231 subsection 2 provides that FOIA does not diminish rights under other statutes. FOIA is a mechanism of access. It is not a shield against statutory compliance. FOIA procedure cannot be used to avoid answering whether the county is in compliance with mandatory law. Michigan law also strictly limits fees when they may be charged, or when fees may be charged, excuse me. A public body may not charge for simply searching for or locating records except in narrowly defined labor situations. If records are already in digital form, they cannot be treated as paper copies and cannot be charged on a per-page basis. They may only charge actual duplication cost, which is typically zero for an email or a PDF, and limited labor for necessary redaction, if any. Labor charges, when allowed, must be necessary, specifically itemized, performed by the lowest paid capable employee, and calculated in 15-minute increments. Blanket or speculative labor estimates are not compliant with MCL 15.234. And where records are already digital and can be emailed without redaction, there is typically no lawful basis to charge a fee. The county did not issue a single complete, lawful, and consistent response across these requests. Instead, the record reflects referral in place of response, extensions without final determinations, cessation of communication after notice, complete silence from logical custodians, and contradictory positions regarding record existence and fees. So I got a department by department breakdown. It's in there in your notice. So the sheriff's office did not issue a response. It referred the request elsewhere and never provided a direct determination. The prosecutor's office issued an extension, but never issued a final determination. After notice of deficiency and clarification, it ceased communication and referred the matter away. The trial court administrator asserted a FOIA judiciary exemption, but after receiving notice that the request was grounded in independent statutory duties, provided no further determination, clarification, or statutory explanation. She just ignored me. By failing to issue any lawful, and also, I forgot to add it in here, but seeing as the treasurer is also another, that's in my next one, disregard. But that will be an issue I bring up. By failing to issue any lawful final determination, that response effectively prevented the ability to pursue a FOIA appeal, while leaving the underlying statutory obligations unresolved. This request was also, there it is in there. I just placed it in the wrong speech. Okay. So, taken together, these are not isolated departmental defects. They show a structural pattern. When a request reaches the point of requiring a clear custodian, a clear answer, or a clear statutory position, the response becomes referral, silence, or deflection. The effect of these responses is not limited to noncompliance. In multiple instances, the failure to issue a lawful final determination prevented the statutory appeal process from functioning. A response that does not meet the requirements of MCL 15.235 leaves the requesting party without a clear determination to appeal while the underlying statutory obligations remain unresolved. That's not a procedural defect. It's a breakdown in the statutory framework itself. The county asserted that records do not exist or are exempt, while simultaneously assessing substantial labor fees to search, review, and redact those same records. Those are legally incompatible positions. Records cannot both exist and require labor to locate and review, and not exist at the same time. A response cannot be both no records and we spent time processing records. Because of that, the response violates MCL 15.235 and MCL 15.234 and constitutes an unlawful denial and unlawful fee assessment as a matter of law. The issue here is not simply access to communications. The issue is whether the county is in compliance with its statutory duty to create, maintain, preserve, and account for records of official activity. The county was placed on notice of these deficiencies several times. It did not correct unlawful fees, issue a lawful final determination, identify custodians, identify systems searched, or provide statutory explanations. Excuse me. At this point, this is no longer an oversight. It's continued noncompliance after notice. Under MCL 15.240, the board now has a non-delegable duty to determine compliance and correct these violations. There's also a structural defect that I mentioned before. The county administrator serves as both FOIA coordinator and the administrative authority. It creates a situation where the county is effectively reviewing its own conduct. For the record, I'm not asking for argument or explanation at this stage. I'm asking for a clear determination. The county is required to take one of two positions on the record. Either responsive records exist, in which they must be produced, or the records do not exist, in which case the county must certify that non-existence following a diligent search of all locations reasonably likely to contain responsive records. That certification must be made in writing by an authorized official with knowledge of the search and must identify the department's custodians and record systems that were searched. The county must also identify the scope of the search, including the timeframes and categories of records reviewed. There is no lawful middle ground, and there is no third option that satisfies the law. Any response that does not clearly state one of those two positions is, by definition, non-responsive. The county must also reconcile its position on fees. If records do not exist, then no labor could have been performed, and all fees must be vacated. If records do exist, then the fees must comply with MCL 15.234. That means no charge for search or retrieval, no per-page charges for digital records, which is what I requested, no fees for email delivery, and no speculative or unitemized labor. The county's fee position does not satisfy those requirements. Failure to provide a clear position lawful certification, and proper fee correction will establish a complete record of statutory noncompliance. The purpose of this appeal is not simply to obtain records, it is to determine whether the county is in compliance with the law governing public records and official activity. The record establishes unlawful denial under MCL 15.235, unlawful fees under MCL 15.234, failure to maintain an account for records, and continued noncompliance after notice. These are not procedural issues, they are failures of statutory compliance and governmental accountability. Under MCL 15.240, corrective action is required. For the record, I am requesting that the board make these findings explicitly. Failure to require a lawful response and proper fee correction will constitute ratification of statutory noncompliance by this board and leave judicial intervention as the only remaining remedy. So that touches on what we spoke about the last time I was here. Okay, then we're going to move on to 25-189. And this is the part I apologized for earlier because y'all are about to hear that opening statement one more time. This is an administrative appeal under MCL 15.240. Although this request was submitted under FOIA, this matter is not limited to FOIA. The records at issue are not merely administrative documents. They are statutory records that demonstrate whether public officials lawfully entered office. This is not a records request issue. This is a statutory compliance issue. FOIA governs only the procedure for requesting records. It does not determine whether records are required to exist, and it does not override independent statutory duties. Where the law requires compliance as a condition precedent to office, that compliance must be documented. Michigan law requires that all public officers take and file oaths of office under MCL 15.1 through 15.5. MCL 15.5 further provides that where a bond is required by law, an officer shall not enter upon the duties of office until that bond is given. That is a condition precedent to lawful office. Where bonding is required, the law also requires that those bonds be executed, approved, and filed. These statutes necessarily require the existence of oath records, the existence of bond instruments where required, and the ability to identify, locate, and produce those records. The county has not identified the controlling statutory authority governing whether judicial officers are required to be bonded. That is the central issue. Either judicial officers are subject to bonding requirements, or they're not. And if they are, records must exist. And if they are not, the county must identify the specific statute that establishes that exemption. The county cannot simply assert that bonding requirements do not apply. It must identify the controlling statutory authority. A conclusory statement without citation to law is non-responsive. Compliance cannot be assumed, it must be demonstrated. The county produced documents purporting to be oaths of office, but it did not identify any bond records, identify the controlling statutory authority governing bonding requirements, identify the custodian of those records, or state whether the required records exist or do not exist. Production alone does not satisfy statutory compliance. The county issued a denial without resolving whether the requested records exist. Man, it's a mouthful. It did not cite a valid exemption under MCL 15.243. It did not identify custodians. It did not issue a complete determination under MCL 15.235. And because of that, no lawful FOIA response has been issued. And this constitutes an unlawful denial as a matter of law. Excuse me. county has not demonstrated compliance with oath execution and filing requirements, bond requirements where applicable, custodial accountability, or record retention obligations. Instead, it provided liability insurance documents and generalized coverage instruments. There is no statute in Michigan law that permits substitution of liability insurance for a required bond. Compliance cannot be approximated. The county was placed on notice of these deficiencies. It did not identify controlling statutory authority, issue a lawful determination, identify custodians, or provide certification of non-existence. At this point, this is no longer an oversight. It is continued noncompliance after notice. Under MCL 15.240, the board now has a non-delegable duty to determine compliance and correct the unlawful denial. And I'm going to again bring up the structural defect. The county administrator serves as both the FOIA coordinator and the administrative authority over the records at issue. That creates a condition where the county is reviewing its own compliance, and the record reflects that no independent statutory determination has been made. For the record, I'm not asking for argument or explanation. I'm asking for a clear determination. The county is required to take one of two positions on the record. Either the requested bond and oath records exist, in which case they must be produced, or the records do not exist, in which case the county must certify that non-existence following a diligent search of all locations reasonably likely to contain responsive records. And it must also identify the statutory authority that allows that bond to not exist. That certification must be made in writing by an authorized official with knowledge of the search. That certification must identify the custodians, the offices responsible, and the record systems that were searched. There is no lawful middle ground, and there is no third option that satisfies the law. Any response that does not clearly state one of those two positions is non-responsive. And like I said before, additionally, the county must identify the controlling statutory authority governing whether judicial officers are required to be bonded. If bonding is required, the records must be produced. If bonding is not required, the county must identify the statute that establishes that exemption. The county may not avoid this question. Failure to provide a clear position, statutory authority, and lawful certification will establish a complete record of statutory noncompliance. These records are not optional. They are the documentary evidence of lawful entry into public office. The record establishes an unlawful denial under MCL 15.235, a failure to identify governing statutory authority, failure to maintain or account for required records, and continued noncompliance after notice. These are not procedural defects. They are failures of statutory compliance governing public office. Under MCL 15.240, corrective action is required. For the record, I am requesting that the board makes these findings explicitly. Failure to require a lawful response will constitute ratification of statutory noncompliance by this board and leave judicial intervention as the only remaining remedy. That's all I have for my appeals. I touched on it briefly during my appeals, but I've also submitted an administrative notice regarding structural deficiencies in Berry County's administrative framework. This notice is narrow and focused. It addresses how ADA access and public records are actually handled in practice. Again, as referenced in my FOIA appeals, at the county level, FOIA coordination and executive authority are all consolidated within a single office. That also includes ADA coordination. At the same time, ADA coordination within the trial court operates separately, but but without a reliable method of tracking or coordinating accommodation requests. And it's also important to note that in the trial court, the deputy court administrator, who is supposed to be an advocate for the court, is also the ADA coordinator, who is supposed to be an advocate for me. So you can see how disappointed I am in that failure, right? Because it's a failure, an ethical failure for sure. These are not separate issues. They are two parts of the same system. Under FOIA, the county is required to provide good faith, neutral determinations. Under ADA Title II, the county is required to provide equal access through a functioning, good faith interactive process, and that should be neutral as well, and it clearly isn't. They both require neutrality, they both require reliability. Here, the structure creates a condition where the same authority controls access to records and access to participation. And in practice, there is no consistent system for receiving, tracking, or responding to ADA requests. That was confirmed by the court's ADA coordinator herself, and I can give you all the email that proves it. Okay? In connection with this meeting, I submitted a request for ADA accommodations. That was on the 18th. I didn't get a response from your ADA coordinator until this morning, and I had to send him an email about it last night. That's not a delay. It's a failure of the process to function. When ADA requests are not acknowledged, there is no mechanism to track or coordinate them. And it stops being an isolated issue, it becomes a structural failure. And when that failure exists within a system where the same office controls both access to information and access to participation, neutrality is no longer structurally ensured. This places the issue at the board level. Because the question is not what happened in one instance, but whether the system itself is capable of functioning in compliance with the law. So at this point, the issue is very clear. Either the current structure complies with FOIA and ADA requirements, in which case the county must explain how ADA requests are reliably received, tracked, and handled, and how neutrality is ensured, or the structure does not provide that level of compliance, in which case corrective action is required. There is no middle ground. This notice requests a clear determination from the board regarding whether the current structure is compliant, and if not, what corrective measures will be implemented. And to be clear, this is not a request about a single response or a single communication. It is a question of whether the system itself works. Without a functioning ADA process, access to participation cannot be ensured. And without structural neutrality, compliance cannot be verified. So I'm submitting this notice for the record and requesting a clear determination from the board. Now, I just gave y'all a lot. Yeah, I know. So, like the last meeting, obviously y'all need some time to review this a little bit, maybe even a little bit further than you already have, and that's fine. I 100% support that. And I 100% will waive any time constraints, maybe within a reasonable amount of time, say 30 to 60 days, whatever y'all feel is necessary. Y'all don't have to give me an answer today if you think it would be better that you didn't. But that's the issue at hand. All right, this is not limited to one office or one participant. This is across your entire county system. The entire county system. And just so y'all are aware, I submitted some more FOIA requests about a week ago. So y'all got more coming. And you may want to correct these issues before y'all issue me, or not y'all, issues me in denial again, because I'll be back. And I'll never quit. I will never give up. I will always come back. You guys will never not get me to come here. I got nothing better to do. Because I've had to take a hiatus from my business over everything that's been going on. So now, since I'm not out making money, I got nothing to do than make sure y'all are doing your job. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I'm just telling you that this is how far this has gone. All right? We're coming up on over a year of this being my life. And it's nonsense. Okay? And I want nothing more than to just settle it and have the information I request to be produced, or actually tell me why it's not existing in accordance with the law. You know? Y'all would expect it from us, right? If it was the other way around? Y'all enact statutes and local administrative orders and things of that nature, and y'all expect us, the public, to follow those, right? I'm just asking that y'all do the same thing. That's it, plain and simple. It's not personal at all. It's the law. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. If y'all have any questions, I can answer them for you. If not, I'll let y'all.
Questions for Mr. Snowden?
I feel like they pretty much all answered in the notices.
It's a lot of information.
It is a lot. And I'm going to tell you, man, it was a lot putting it together. Long days at the computer and a lot of time spent editing. It was a lot for me. So I know it's a lot for y'all. Well, if that's it for today,
thank you.
I'll be on my way. Thank you.
Board, that is a lot of information, and that's a lot of things to consider. Mr. Snowden has pointed out perhaps procedural issues that should be reviewed by the board. Some consideration of how our process actually works, not just at the administrator level, but at the courts level, and I think we can do that. The ADA request that was submitted, I'll take some responsibility for that because Mr. Snowden sent an ADA request. I thought that I didn't take it as a request. I took it as a notice that these are some things that he requested. So we came prepared today to provide everything, and I think our administrator outlined that in advance. I didn't see that there was a response being requested for that. So that's my fault. I did read it. We did acknowledge it. We did come prepared to handle all that today, but we did not. So in regards to procedures, neutrality, I think those are things that the board can review. So as he had pointed out with some of the stuff on the MCLs, willful neglect, concealment of destruction of public records, unlawful denial, failure to comply with statutory requirements, failure to maintain account records, continued noncompliance after notice. These are things that, in my opinion, are beyond the scope of what you and I have the ability to litigate. I mean, I'm not a FOIA expert. Obviously, that's why we have attorneys to go through and put opinions together for us. So we have asked our attorney for an opinion. I think all of you got a chance to read that opinion. I've also asked for a review of the amounts being billed. And as some of you have seen over the last several years, we've had piles of FOIAs, everything from elections. I mean, we've had sheriff's office, we've had piles of FOIAs coming in, and this isn't the most expensive one, based on the time it takes to go through emails, redact information, and do stuff. So we asked for a review of the expenses. We've gone through and taken a look at everything provided. We asked our attorney to put together an opinion because I thought Mr. Snowden did an excellent job of putting information together, but again, he's citing a lot of MCLs and details that are just beyond my scope of experience with how to do this. Now, for review, I'm going to read the summary of Cole, Stoker, and Toski's PC opinion, and it states this. In summary, it's our opinion that the county board should consider and resolve the pending FOIA appeals as recommended by legal counsel. There is nothing in the January 13th, 2026 correspondence that would suggest the partial denial should be reversed or that the estimated fee should be reduced or waived. County administrator is on notice of a litigation hold and is aware that any records that the county has with respect to the FOIA request should be retained in anticipation of potential litigation going forward. I would also suggest that if it's at the pleasure of the board, that we can release this opinion. I didn't think there was anything in here that Mr. Snowden couldn't have privilege to, but that we can release that opinion to him as well. So I know he had mentioned he's got other FOIAs. It's continuing to go on. But again, it is the recommendation of our attorney after we have spent a lot of time on this, as he has spent a lot of time on this. So, and we appreciate the fact that it's very clear and he's making some very pointed accusations at the county for what we're doing or what we're not doing correctly. So, but at this point, I think the way forward is probably litigation. If he feels that this is truly happening, then this should be before a judge, not before a board, for us to determine this, because we're not going to make sense of this or be able to litigate this logically. At least I'm not. Maybe some of you are, but I'm not. So anyways, are there any questions, any comments?
My only question, I basically concur with you, but I'm wondering if it would make sense for us to be able to meet with council, to have council go through literally major point by major point and give us a perspective on it, so at least we understand better why he's, in Mr. Snowden's material, he's very, very specific about certain instances and what they constitute in way of, negligence, process, and by necessity, we've gotten a correspondence from the attorney that gives us a summary that he's comfortable with the positions that we've taken. I just wonder whether or not we ought to dig into that a little bit more with him so that we can say that we have truly explored the extent of the charges that have been made.
Well, some of the stuff are the same charges that were made earlier.
Right, agreed.
From the last meeting.
Right.
So, and our attorney has reviewed them and has come back and said that we are in compliance with the FOIA statute. Now, there are things that Mr. Snowden is asserting that our attorney is saying that they're just on opposite ends of the spectrum where they're never going to agree on these things. But that's why it almost needs to be litigated before a court and say, okay, we're wrong, or we need corrective action here, or our attorney is right and we're paying these guys for their opinion to go through and do this. So, but some of the information is the same as it was the last time. This is a lot more detailed.
No, I recognize that.
Additional questions or comments?
I got a comment. It boils down to is, consistency on charging what we charge for FOIAs. I mean, how do you determine that, Eric? I mean, that's one thing that I guess I could stand some clarification on how do you determine billable hours and all that kind of stuff.
So
you are consistent on
we're consistent for, doesn't matter who you are when you put it in. A request comes in. If you looked at his original FOIA, it's extremely broad. And as such, IT notices put out to all the departments to say, hey, this is the request we got, and you need to look through your records, see what you have. IT does a search as well, all email-related items. They provide a download to each department to review, and an estimate is made at that time to say we have so many records, it takes us so many times to go through, because there are personal identification information in there. There could be protected attorney-client privilege. So it's not just, here's a download, here you go. We have to review what goes out. So that estimate is what you see in the response packet, that, we estimate it's going to take us X time per department. As you can see in there, there's no cost for printing in there, anything along those lines. That would have all been sent by email. But because of the extremely broad nature of his FOIA requests, it makes it, there's a lot of time. I mean, it's just a lot of time. And he is right, he made, I think, 6 or 7 more FOIA requests came in the last week. So, again, very broad. All communication, I'm going to detail, like all communication with this, regarding this person and everyone in the county, basically. So that takes a while to go through. And there could be documents not even related to his case or other issues, but we still have to go through, because of the way it was written, we still have to do that work. I will say I don't necessarily agree with some of Mr. Stone's characterizations. Or remember, some of these departments don't work for me, so I don't have oversight of prosecutor's office, sheriff's department. Those are separate elected officials. So
all I care about, the question basically is that we're consistent with anybody that comes through the door.
Yeah, we are. It doesn't matter who you are. We follow the same process. It's a policy that I believe Michael Llewellyn updated a few years ago. I'm happy to always review our process. I would think you can ask any department head if there's something that we need to look at doing differently. Happy to do that, because I don't accept the fact that we've always done it this way. That's the way we do it. I mean, if there's a better way of doing things, we will. This was the first ADA request I've had since I've been here, so it was a little late in getting back to him, but we were prepared for him. So we'll make sure, and the courts and I will work on those things together as necessary. So, yeah, I would say you have a decision to make. Do you uphold the appeals? Do you overturn the appeals? Or you can, in some nature, reduce the fee. At this point, I don't know how you would reduce the fee, except just to say, hey, we want to be nice and we're going to reduce it to X. We in the end, we would only charge the time that we actually did the search. So if we got done quicker than we thought, we would reduce it by that amount.
They require, what, a 50% deposit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to give you a real quick legal opinion or not on ours? Because his question is pertinent.
Sure.
Bob's question is pertinent to the consistency. And I have a quick answer that if you want it.
Sure, if you want to come up to the microphone, that'd be great. We're trying to learn as much as we can, and we're getting far more education than we ever thought. So.
Sure. I just wanted to also comment, because it directly relates to my office, and it may relate somewhat to DAR too, the sheriff. When somebody sends our office a FOIA, and it's something that's attorney-client privilege or more equally attorney work product, it's probably going to be reviewed by me or whichever attorney handled it, but we can only charge the fee to the lowest paid person in that category. So I can't give my attorney work product stuff to my office manager. It has to be an attorney that looks at it and says, yes, this is attorney work product. Because there's laws that define what that is. But it's not Julie's salary and benefits, it's Allie's. Allie Rouse is our lowest paid prosecutor. So I might be doing the work, but the citizens may be getting the benefit of a lower fee because we can't charge any more than that. In addition to that, we can't question their motivation, what the reasons why they want it, because I was listening very intently and taking lots of notes today. We can't question a person's motivation. I do try to work with my requesters, because sometimes their requests are so broad so broad that they're probably not understanding sometimes, and I'm not speaking to Mr. Snowden, I have my own thoughts on that, but if it's so broad that it's going to cost them a lot of money, I sometimes will call them and say, hey, let's talk about what you are really looking for, because we can, it ends up saving money because we're trying to narrow down what it is they want. And I won't get into it, but there are some orders regarding Mr. Snowden, and he does not have an attorney in the criminal matter, but we have not had good luck talking to him directly, even though we can, because he doesn't have a lawyer, and I'm not going to put myself or my staff through talking to him directly about this. So I can't call him like I would any other requester because of this past history of issues. So, and the criminal matter is being well done by Judge Skipper and well controlled, and that's good. That's good for everybody involved. So even though he brought some of that up today, it kind of is the same thing for a FOIA. We have to tread carefully. We want to make sure we're doing it. So the other thing is so again, with consistency, when people say that it doesn't, when I say something doesn't exist, that doesn't mean it shouldn't cost any money. Sometimes it takes me a very long time. I'm not the only prosecutor that's ever worked there. So if I have a prosecutor that's been there longer than when I was elected, then I got to go through the whole office and figure out whether that thing does exist or doesn't exist, and that does take time, and I'm not doing it for free. So, I mean, we're busy. I've got a murder trial coming up next month. We are busy people, and so yes, I want to charge for it, but we are consistent. But I wanted to explain that little nuance with attorneys, because only an attorney can decide what's attorney work product, but it's still not my salary. It's Ms. Rouse. So, anyway, I just wanted to make that clarification.
I appreciate it.
The other thing is, too, is we've had so many FOIA requests at all different levels, and if we decide that we're going to reduce one for this individual, for Mr. Snowden, you're setting a precedence that the next person will come in and say, but you did this, or whatever the case is. So if we're consistent in our policy across the board, and we had pointed it out in the last meeting that if he reduced the scope of the FOIA and narrowed it down, he could probably get the information he wanted without being so broad. But again, I don't think that's the case, and from what has happened, we've gotten 5, 6 more FOIAs, several more. So, additional questions? Commissioner Smelter?
I kind of agree with Dave on this.
I don't know if, and I don't know if we need to talk to a lawyer specifically about this. We could certainly use this as an example, but maybe a training. When we have, I mean, we have extra time, only having meetings every other, so we could actually sit down and do something, or we could get our attorney in here, and it could be open to the public then, and they could go through things like this and have question and answer. So, something to consider,
Because actually, what I was curious about was less some of the specifics about this as his citations on MCLs and board responsibilities. What are our responsibilities? We know what his opinion is. What's our counsel's opinion? And are we assured that we're doing things that we as a board should do in a broader sense, not just in the sense of this set of circumstances?
Mr. Chair, general question on ADA compliance, especially when there's psychological, mental things that we can't physically see. When someone makes these ADA compliance issues, do these disabilities that we can't see have to be certified by any medical professionals in any way? Or can you just say that you have this, that, or the other, and then expect everyone to kowtow to that?
There is a process through ADA which you can require certification of the reason for accommodation. In this case, I took him at his word, and that's why I put that response together. But yes, we could put that
if there's ever a question that's not obvious, you can follow up and say, hey, we need certification for X, Y, and Z. That is possible.
Mr. Chair, we got two different things going on here, right? I mean, we've got denial, appeal, and we also have fees. So we need to address basically both, right? I mean, I don't feel that we should question the fee if it's recommended by the administrator and all the other departments. I don't think we should go against that policy. But the denial, that's a whole different deal, right?
I think you have a couple. I mean, I think the attorney's opinion lays out the issues he has on denial. He's requesting the appeal on the denial. They've covered some of that in here. So I think you have a basis if you want to do that. I think at the same time you could also table it to a later meeting if you so choose and consult with your attorney. Always at your discretion to do so. Otherwise, if you're going to make a motion, I would request that you make two motions, basically one to handle the appeals and one to handle the excess fees of FOIAs.
In my final opinion, we've spent 2 meetings talking about this in some detail, and I've tried to give Mr. Snowden the benefit of the doubt. He's done an excellent job presenting himself in his case and creating a lot of questions for us, and I think some things we can follow up on. But at this point, I don't think we're capable of solving this. I think that literally that he's asked us, per the attorney letter, to put documents on hold for future litigation, and I think that's where it needs to go, because I don't think we're going to solve this here in this room. So,
and Mr. Chair, we do have litigation hold on.
Okay. So, if there are no other questions or comments, the first motion I'm going to make, a motion to deny the appeal of FOIA 25-176 and FOIA 25-189 per the advice given by legal counsel. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Support. Motion by Getty, support by Hatfield. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Getty? Aye. Smelker? Aye. Tennyson?
Aye.
Bassett?
Aye.
Carlton?
Aye.
Campbell's absent. Hatfield?
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. The second motion would be the chair would entertain a motion to deny the excessive fee appeal for FOIA number 25-179, 25-180, and 25-180B. Who would like to make that motion?
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Tunison. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Smelker?
Aye.
Tennyson?
Aye.
Bassett?
Aye.
Carlton?
Aye.
Getty? Aye. Campbell's absent. Hatfield?
Aye.
And Jackson.
Aye. The motion is approved. Thank you, Commissioners. We've learned a lot about this, and I think we're going to learn a lot more about this. Thank you for your input and comments on that as well. So, appreciate it, Julie. So, unfinished business, we have none. New business, we have none. County Administrator's report?
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Chairperson's report. I am all set for the moment. Vice Chairperson's report.
I have nothing.
Commissioner's report. Commissioner Tunison.
I really don't have anything to report on. I'll lighten the load.
All right. Commissioner Smelter.
Attended Central Dispatch yesterday, and the director's report, in the last 10 years, the calls have gone up 50%.
Wow. Is there a reason for that?
I think we got that much more population, don't we?
Interesting. Maybe they're just friendly. Commissioner Getty.
I Village Minnesota tonight.
Commissioner Carlton.
John and I were at Transit yesterday. I got Commission on Aging this afternoon, and y'all got this thing for our lasagna dinner. Now, this lasagna is better than Olive Garden lasagna, and you get a bigger piece of lasagna. They did really well with it last year, but if you have any problem with the ticket, there's lots of ways to get them, and even call me if you can't get one. Thank you.
Silent auction, music. Wow, a lot of stuff going on there. Okay. And that's at the current COA facility, correct?
No, it's at the
event center.
venue,
Okay.
12:30.
Okay, venue 12:30. Good to point out. Commissioner Bassett.
What calls the question, will they have a vegetarian lasagna?
Well, gluten-free, you know. I don't know. I know they're two different things, but want me to find that out?
I think you should find that out.
Okay.
Just to let me know. You can always just eat the salad. Okay, am I up?
Yes.
All right, so I had my first Gun Lake Improvement Board meeting of the year, and so at that point, we established, like the courses of order, establishing the chair and vice chair, and we just kept the same chair we had from before, Vivian Connor and Jim Dahl as our chair and vice chair. And then we met with the consultants who come in and talked about some of the plans for the products that will be used on the lake, and so those meetings now will be monthly. Then I met with Prairieville, and Prairieville, I did not realize this walking in. I left Glib, and so I get to Prairieville a few minutes late, and I arrive and the parking lot is full. I'm parking in the cemetery, if you know Prairieville, and the TV3 is there, and some of you might have seen it on the news. The hot topic on the table was the approval of a school resource officer. And so, as it goes, currently, Prairieville Township pays the school resource officer, who is Mark Doster, who is our former fire chief, for 16 hours of work in the school during the school year, just to do that function. And he's retiring, so now the request had come in from the school to have a full-time school resource officer that would be shared somewhat with the school and with Prairieville Township. And the school has $311 that could pay for a full-time officer in the school during the days that school is in session, and then Prairieville would have that officer on their roles for the time when school is not in session. And so the Prairieville would employ the officer, the school would reimburse for the portion of the school day that would be funded by them. It equates to about $54,000 coming from the school to reimburse, and about $16,000 from the township. Previously, it cost about $16,000 to $17,000 in total, but the township was reimbursed for that amount from the school. I don't know if that's clear. But there was quite a showing from the public, obviously, not obviously, but very much in favor of having the officer there. At the end of the meeting, they did vote to approve having the officer funded fully, and the township would pay their portion and the school would pay the other. So, but it was a long meeting, long discussions, and a good outcome in my mind. So keeping the kids safe ended up being the bottom line. Also had a lot of people there on the short-term rental issue. So a lot of public comment on that. And some of the constituents came in, because Prairieville does their own zoning. They came in with model language from other townships and communities. And that was quite helpful. And it turns out in the next zoning meeting, they were going to begin to address, and they had an attorney come in to address those issues in their zoning ordinances. And then we also had representation regarding data centers. And again, the public showed up with, again, some model language that could go in the zoning. And it's clear, at least from what the comments were, is that you can establish zoning ordinances that establish ordinances and boundaries. You can't just say, oh, we're not going to have them. Well, maybe you can, but the point was that we need to establish reasonable zoning ordinances that will handle the issues that will be coming up on those two issues. So, yeah, it was a long meeting, but very educational and good outcome on the school resource officer, so.
Yeah, short-term rentals are popping up all over right now.
Oh, exactly.
So that's a lot of discussion. Thank you. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
I should have said this earlier, but our take on that whole FOIA thing, that was the oddest FOIA I've ever seen, and I've been at this 22 years this year. And when my undersheriff brought to my attention, I'm looking at it going, is this a FOIA or what is this? So I think you're making a good decision on this and keeping it consistent. We keep it consistent, and we don't pay attention, and we have rely a lot on IT for information that we requested. And there's some FOIAs, if it only takes me like a minute or two, I don't even charge. So nonetheless, what did we have, 1,485 FOIAs last year, something like that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyways, commend you for listening to him. That was quite a bit. And you all have an association, too, you can reach out to. I plan on reaching out to the Sheriff's Association, see if anybody's seen anything like this, because I have a feeling it's more and more will be coming, looking like this. Even with the thumbprint, I'm seeing that a little bit more often, too. So, thank you.
Thank you. What's that?
Hello, Shelley Lake, Irving Township. I listened to what Mr. Snowden said. It was a lot. Holy moly. I would encourage you to read those MCLs that involve the commissioners, because there are responsibilities. I'm going to read them. So, not just rely on the lawyers, but actually dig into it yourself. I will say the system is really broken in several places in this county. You all know I do FOIAs. I get some that are just completely ignored, mainly townships we're talking, but it's still in the county. I either am ignored, I get a request for a 10-day extension, and then I'm ignored after that. A lot of denials when there shouldn't be. Data deleted. Oops, we deleted it. One of the most maddening, real quick, is that I did file a criminal complaint against the past county clerk. I like her, but here's the thing, data cannot be deleted. It went to the sheriff's office. They obviously saw enough to send it to the prosecutor. Julie Pratt recused herself, sent it to the AG for the state to assign a special prosecutor. That was 3 years ago. And it's still sitting there with nothing. That's how I feel we're treated, as go away. We'll just not do anything. And that's illegal, but I really do encourage. I loved your idea. I think it was you, Mr. Jackson, about maybe getting together and even the public could ask some questions, because the system can be fixed. And I hope y'all telling Mr. Snowden, you commissioners put your brains together and let's get this system fixed, because it's going to cost the county a lot of money down the road. I feel like this is just the beginning of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
One thing I can say is, if it was your money, I wouldn't care, but it's the taxpayers' money. You get two attorneys in a meeting, and the bill just goes up, and they don't get nothing done. So, non-compliance, Open Meetings Act, I talked about that earlier. It didn't take long. You, as a board, today, by roll call vote, approved minutes that are non-compliant. Your minutes do not have any determination on two motions. Did you know that? Did anybody read their minutes? But there's no decision there, right? Did you deny or did you approve? That just makes my job, well, why am I asking these questions? So that's in your 17th minutes. Also, it's amazing that you're in those minutes that you were talking about people not showing up. And that's, for your meetings, for your interviews. Did you make yourselves available during the time of those boards in the evenings? You talk about, well, they need to come and interview for us. Do you pay them your wage, your benefits, your mileage to go to and from? No, you sit there arrogantly, I would say, well, they're not here at my 9 o'clock meeting, and they have daytime jobs. When Commissioner Bassett says, I don't know Jason Watson. As a statutory member of the Berry County Republican Party, there were 7 of them here, and nobody explained who Jason Watson was at that meeting. You know, you had 2 people that said they don't want to vote for people, but they must have voted for him. You know, so there's an inconsistency with what you folks do. You know, and now you got to become compliant with your Open Meetings Act. You were non-compliant earlier today by approving 2 sets of minutes. Then you're non-compliant today because you have no decisions on 2 motions. Isn't that your responsibility to read your minutes and understand that the Open Meetings Act says you must have a record of what you do, your decisions, but yet your record is not there? So I don't know, where do you go? When do you start listening to people with public comment instead of being, I don't know, I say either arrogant or ignorant, or arrogant and ignorant both, but it's just non-stop, continues, correct? I don't like that person. I know a person, I'm going to put him on zoning board of appeals, not qualified, but we put him on there anyways, and did not put the qualified person on there. Then we left seats open. Well, they didn't show up. It's just amazing that it's a continual happening in here. And people don't like it when it's brought to you, I'm just going to ignore him. Nobody likes him anyways, right? He says it, but we can ignore them. Please get your checkbook out and write the attorney's fees, not mine.
Additional public comment? Hearing none. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Bassett.
I just wanted to comment on one thing with that gentleman. Even though I said I do not know him, I just have never met him. I did see his qualifications, and you reviewed them as well during the meeting, and I did see that he was qualified for the position. And so I just wanted to make that clear. I just have not met the person before. Also wanted to let the board know that Jeff Kiesler came to our recent Rotary meeting last week, and he educated the Rotary on all that's going on with the updates, Dave Hatfield with zoning and all the things that they're considering. It was a great education. He was a wonderful ambassador for the county to come out, and the board said, we'd like you to come back out and educate us more. It was really a good presentation. He did say he's going around the county to talk to different groups and townships and things. So that's a really good thing that he's doing. Also, there are 27 tickets is all left for the gala presented this year before. As of last night, we only have 27 tickets left. So if you want to come and you don't have your tickets yet, please buy them. And I put brochures up there for that.
What was the date again?
April 16th.
Okay. I know my nurse has already got tickets, so
Yeah.
we're good. Commissioner Colton, Commissioner Getty, Commissioner Smelker, Commissioner Hatfield, Commissioner Tunison.
I'm good today, Mr. Chair.
If you have not registered for the MAC Legislative Conference in Lansing, please talk to Emma or
Talk to me.
Talk to you.
Yep.
And get that done. And because we're at the end of the month, if you have extra meetings, be sure you get your mileage forms into Emma as well. So, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, commissioners. Have a great week.